Technology has been with humans forever. It's sort of a natural part of who we are. So humans invent new technology, the technology influences who we are. And when I look at AI, I just see that as a natural evolution of technology. So just like when VisiCalc was invented, which then became Excel, you had accountants who were able to do their work much more efficiently. And when Photoshop and Illustrator came about, then you had designers and photographers and illustrators who were able to do their work much more efficiently. My prediction is that AI will essentially enhance people's working lives just like Excel has enhanced our working life or Photoshop has enhanced our working life. And if you look at the impact of a technology like Excel or VisiCalc and Photoshop and Illustrator, what I think you've seen is that there are more creatives and more accountants. Technology has a tendency to democratize certain roles. They make it easier for people to become an accountant, or it makes it easier for somebody to become a designer. There'll be more people who are able to engage in more kinds of jobs that currently are gated by skills that you need to learn by using some kind of tool or technology. What will happen over time then is that the type of skills that you used to need to have to use those tools will no longer be necessary, and you'll have this up-leveling of people's creativity, sort of their executive function, and I think we'll get to a point where we'll end up having a working environment where you have individuals, single individuals, who are able to do the jobs of, like, say, a lawyer or an accountant or somebody in finance and then somebody in marketing and somebody in design, or maybe it'll be a group of like 2 or 3 people. And they're able to use AI to get their work done because all of those other jobs will be sort of democratized. Then we'll have more entrepreneurs who are able to do more with less. And what I think will happen is that we won't have a shortage of jobs from this. I think we'll just have more entrepreneurs doing more. If you've got a great idea and a great vision and you're a great sort of manager and you know how to be creative, your potential will be unblocked because you won't have to build up a massive company to attain your goal and your dream. I think we'll just see more people thinking at a higher level and working at a higher level because of the capabilities that AI brings us over time. How have we integrated AI and automation into Slack? At Slack, we are focused on making sure people's working lives are more simple, more productive, and more pleasant. And AI is a huge part of what we're focused on now. What we found, though, is that we're in sort of the early days of the general understanding of AI by knowledge workers. You can go on ChatGPT and you can start to talk with it and it gives you some interesting answers. But when it comes to actually doing work, there are a whole set of considerations that come into play. So first is the response that you get, is it something you can trust? GPT hallucinates quite a bit. We can't have your mission critical information within Slack being hallucinated. There's also the fact that most knowledge workers don't want to be prompt engineers. They don't understand how to interface with a conversational AI system. So what we've done is we've tried to make sure that the experience of AI within Slack is as simple as just clicking a button. So we're doing things like summarizing your conversations or giving you a more conversational search result. So these are things that are sort of hard-coded into Slack's interface. And that's one thing that I think has been really attractive about what we've built. People can just use Slack like they use it today, and instead we're able to summarize information really well for them. And then we give them things like reference links in the summary that leads back to the actual source data so they can trust the results of the AI. There's a new feature that we released recently called Recaps. It's an awesome feature, and you basically can take all of the conversations that you don't necessarily need to actively pay attention to or respond to, but you still need to monitor and track, maybe once a day or once every 2 days, and you can put them into your recap. And without doing anything, it aggregates all of the conversations across those channels and conversations, and it summarizes them. For example, today, I hadn't checked my recap in about 3 days, and it had summarized 60 Slack channels. That's where these conversations happen that were very frequented. So there's a lot of conversations in them. And I think it summarized more than 2,000 messages. And then it gives you a readout of how much time that it saves. And it claimed that it had saved me around 200 minutes, which I think it actually saved me more like maybe 90 minutes, but it still saved me all that time. So it's doing that automatically. And I think you'll see more features like that because Slack is this living, breathing information ecosystem where you have multiple people who are having conversations across the board, and there's so much we can do with understanding the network of people that you're participating in conversations with, and doing summarizations or understanding the sentiment or extracting tasks. So there's so much interesting insights that we can glean from those conversations and bring them out to you, so you can do more with them and be more productive and more effective. So the productivity toolkit that I put together is based on a number of things. So first, it's based on my experience at Slack. And so again, Slack's mission is to make people's working lives more simple, productive, and pleasant. Productive is part of our mission. Our founders were obsessed with having a productivity-minded culture. And it was one of the, I think, most significant experiences that I had coming to Slack was adapting to that culture and understanding it. And now it's incredible. I love working in a productivity minded culture because fundamentally what it means is that you focus on the types of work and the tasks that ultimately matter to your business and your customers and that ladder up to top line goals. And you can say no to the work, the stuff that doesn't actually matter or add accretive value, if you have a justification to say no to it. So that's sort of Slack's culture. And I've learned lessons from that, which have built this toolkit. The other sort of data set that's flown into that is brought into the toolkit is from Slack's Workforce Lab. So Slack has a research arm that runs a quarterly survey of over 10,000 knowledge workers across 5 continents. And we've been learning about how people think and feel about work over time. At its most basic, the toolkit has a perspective on productivity and how to sort of create a productivity equation. So on the one hand, you have value. And value is really about being able to identify what are the most important things that you need to accomplish as a company. The top level, what are your goals, your mission? Then at the team level, how do those team level goals ratchet up to the top line goals? And then at an individual level, how do those individual goals ratchet up to the team and then the top line goals? Then the other side of the equation is efficiency. So if you take those two sides of the equation, value and efficiency, are you doing the right things? Then efficiency, are you doing more of the right things? Efficiency has 3 factors. The first one is culture. Do you have a culture that enables trust and transparency and that's obsessed with productivity in the first place and that's willing to introspect and identify whether you've actually done the work to be more productive? The second are the people in your organization. Have you hired people who have real skills that can contribute to your valuable work? That seems easy to do, but it's not always easy to accomplish. But then more important than that is, do you have people who have a bias for action on your team? Are they constantly growing? Are they able and protected by the culture that you've created to then say no to tasks? If you have that alignment, then individuals on your team can say no. That's good. And they can focus on their own individual growth goals or the goals that ratchet up to better value and alignment. And then the last part of efficiency is tools. And these are the software and the hardware that we use to be more productive. There's a lot of talk about AI. Obviously, it's one of the most important things. But my contention is that what's more important is your tool should match the culture that you want to attain. And so tools are really these vehicles for helping you attain the right kind of culture. So I see this really interesting symbiotic relationship with your cultural goals around productivity and then the tools that you can use to reinforce those goals. So when you kind of add all those up, you basically have, are you working on the most important things? That's the value. Are you doing that with great people? And are you doing that within the right kind of cultural environment? And are you using the right tools that augments it all? So those 4 factors go into this productivity toolkit. I spend a lot of time with CIOs and people who are responsible for their organization's AI strategy and policies. The first thing that I've seen that's important for people to focus on and for companies to focus on is making sure they have a good data strategy. In most large companies, especially legacy companies, data is siloed in different databases and across different teams and oftentimes different services and experiences. Because data is the foundation of AI, it's critical to unify your data in some sort of way and then create unified metadata structure on top of that. Once you have a unified data set, which has connection points and the appropriate metadata, then the AI can work with that data and it can make sense of that data. So that's the first step. It's probably the most important step to start to think about today for companies. Then the next step I would say is have an idea of what you want to accomplish. And I would say start small. Start with one or two things that are really important for you to accomplish for your business in terms of your own productivity, or maybe that you want to accomplish in terms of connecting with your customers in a better way. I think the next thing is trust is super critical. And so what that means is that your customers need to trust that their data is secure with you. And you also as a company need to trust that your data is not hallucinating, especially when it comes to the experience that your customers have with your data. When people lose trust in the output of AI, they lose trust in your brand. They lose trust in your company. You were taking baby steps here. We're trying to get it right. And so I would say that it's important to experiment. You can take some risks, but make sure trust is foundational. And then from a policy perspective, if you have a good sort of like focus on trust, I think the next aspect of your policy that's important is have an experimental mindset. So don't be shy about jumping into the water. It's important to start now. You really have no time to waste. And so I think it's really important for, companies throughout New Zealand to not be afraid of actually focusing on AI and figuring out where they want to experiment, because it's moving fast. We are going to see more companies, more industries being transformed with AI. It will be a competitive differentiator. And so the more that you can focus on experimenting with it and getting more comfortable with it, the better for your business and better for your company and better for your customers. The verdict is still out on whether remote work makes you more productive or less productive. There are significant benefits from remote work, but those benefits are not necessarily around productivity. So remote work is fantastic when it comes to providing flexibility for folks. So if you're a parent or if you're a caretaker, remote work is incredible. Remote work can also be very beneficial when it comes to broadening the world of people you can possibly employ. So if you're looking to hire great people, remote work is fantastic for that. Sort of adjunct to the flexibility is people's retention. Remote workers tend to like to work remotely. And so if you have a remote work policy, they're able to benefit from all that flexibility. And you may have an opportunity to retain them longer within your organization. And I think one of the last sort of important benefits of remote work is on the environment, actually. So in a lot of places, where you have a really long commute and it's primarily by automobiles, having a remote work culture and having a sort of a significant set of companies that enjoy a remote work culture reduces air pollution. We've seen this quite a bit in the Bay Area. We especially saw this during the pandemic. Now, even when you have a culture that is remote first, it's really critical for people to come together face to face. Humans love to be around other humans. And what we've found at Slack is that when we do bring people together face to face, whether it's once a week or whether it's like once a quarter or once a year, we try to really optimize for those events to make them memorable and special and really engage people. Because the more that you can get people together and connect and get to know each other, the more trust and empathy and transparency is built within your organization. And that has a lasting effect once people go back to their remote workplaces. They're able to trust their coworkers more. And we found that trust is a leading indicator for greater productivity. I don't have a point of view on the ultimate balance. I tend to optimize for the individual and what works well for individuals. At an organizational level, you need to have a company culture. And you need to be clear about what culture you have within your organization so you can attract people who are then attracted to that culture. I think it's also important then to listen to your employees and know what they need. So even in companies where you have, an environment where it's in office all the time, you're going to have people who have needs. You're going to have caretakers on your team. You're going to have people who are parents on their team and they need to get home to coach their kid's soccer game. I think it's important for all employees to acknowledge the needs of their employees and build that into their policies. So they're not making exceptions, but they're making it possible for people to live their lives in a way that's healthy. And I think it's important to provide employees with some level of flexibility when it comes to when they work and where they work, even if you're in office most of the time.